For our next speaker, for silence is risk. Now this is going to be quite interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome on stage Dr. Jegadeswary. Doctor?
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Jega, and let me see, how do I get this? The slide is not moving. Okay, so my name is Jega. I'm currently the Pharmacovigilance Taskforce lead under PhAMA. PhAMA is the Pharmaceutical Association of Malaysia. Okay. I'm also the country safety head at Sanofi-Aventis Malaysia, covering Malaysia and Brunei for pharmacovigilance. And I hope this session will be useful to all the doctors who are still practicing, and you can find out why it's important to you. Okay. So a little bit about PhAMA before I go on. PhAMA is an industry trade association representing 41 pharmaceutical companies in Malaysia. Yeah? What does PhAMA do? The booth is out there. Please come and stop by and see us later. So PhAMA helps with policy shaping, talking about regulations, thinking about how to make sure that innovative medicines keep coming to Malaysia. So pretty important, because many times the big pharmaceutical companies, they kind of try to divert the newer medicines or newer molecules to countries in which the currency is higher. So PhAMA does a lot of advocacy and policy work to ensure these drugs come to Malaysia. My talk today is Silence is Risk, why pharmacovigilance reporting is a medical legal duty. A little bit of a disclaimer, because I work at Sanofi. The views and opinions expressed for these slides are mine and mine alone, so it's not complete without my verbal commentary. Okay, so 3 days ago, 17th of September, it's World Patient Safety Day. And World Patient Safety Day is something that's celebrated and initiated by the World Health Organization. Okay? So in 2019, these stats, right, that you see about patient safety, in 2019, WHO states that 1 in a million chance of being harmed while traveling by plane. However, there's a 1 in a 300% chance, or 1 in 300% chance of being harmed as a patient while receiving healthcare. Okay? In 2023, however, you can see the stats have changed, and again, these stats are coming from WHO. So from 1 in 300, it has now dropped to 1 in every 10 patients is harmed in healthcare. Is that alarming or not? Yeah? So that was actually one of the reasons I chose to leave practice. So it's very personal to me, right? I was looking at a lot of medication errors. To err is human, but there was just too much of it that I started to look for, why is this happening? Okay? And in 2023 stats also, above 50% of harm is preventable. Half of this harm is actually attributed to medication errors or medications. Okay? So patient safety is a broad science that safeguards patients from harm, and pharmacovigilance is a subset under patient safety, looking specifically at drug reactions or any other problems that are drug related. Okay? So hopefully this will give you a little bit of the history and the background. When we talk about the history of modern pharmacovigilance, it happened somewhere between 1957 to 1961, in which a drug called thalidomide was sold as an over-the-counter product as safe for pregnant women. It was sold as an anti-nauseating drug, mild sedative. So many people bought this drug. For 4 years, more than 147,000 pregnancies worldwide was affected and resulted in 24,600 live births looking like this. Okay? Now, back then, the world didn't have pharmacovigilance in a post-marketing setting. It was only during clinical trials that side effects were reported and looked into. So they didn't look and collect data from a real world setting. Now, because of this, there was a doctor in Australia. So all this is happening around the world. A doctor in Australia called William McBride in 1961 published his suspicions in the Lancet, right? So that's his original article. And as a result of his article or his question into the Lancet, right, the World Health Organization actually found that, yes, thalidomide is the drug that is causing all these birth defects, right? So doctors, especially GPs, because your patients are going to come back to you after, say, a specialist has put them on a medicine or something else is happening, they're going to come back and complain to you about all these side effects, right? And this is where you have a role to play to inform the health authorities about these side effects happening, because if you don't, no one else is, right? And as a result of this, WHO passed a resolution for the detection of adverse events. Okay. Now, the definition of pharmacovigilance by WHO is the science and activities relating to detection, assessment, understanding and prevention of adverse effects. So you're not just looking at side effects, but you're also looking at medication errors, misuse and drug abuse, exposure via parent, lack of efficacy. Lack of efficacy is a very important one. You've all heard about antibiotic cycles, right? So if your antibiotic you're prescribing is not working, you have to tighten up or you have to change antibiotics, you need to actually inform NPRA that the antibiotic is having lack of efficacy. Yeah, I hope you guys know that. I'm sure you all are reporting. You have occupational exposure, off-label use, overdose. There's many more, but these are some of the examples. Oh, maybe I come back to this slide again. There's a little one called suspected transmission of an infectious agent. Okay, I give you a scenario, right? Let's say patient A came to your GP clinic for a chickenpox vaccine, okay, on a Monday. Okay, on Thursday, no, let's say he came for the influenza vaccine on a Monday, right? On Thursday, your patient comes back after the influenza vaccine and now reports he has chickenpox. So you start seeing all these rashes. Do you have to report this or not? The answer is yes. He may have contracted the chickenpox from the influenza vaccine. How can this happen? So as you know, chickenpox is a live virus. In a manufacturing setting, mistakes can happen, accidental transmissions can happen. It could be that is what is happening because it's 3 days post-vaccine, right? Cross-contamination of vaccines can happen at a manufacturing setting. Yeah? But we won't know, we can't do something unless you come back and report it to us to prevent the harm from happening in the next patient. Right. When I was a medical student, very long time ago, the only thing I knew was that exposure for drugs happens in a mother during lactation or pregnancy. Today, with the latest science, and even then it's developing as we speak in the last 2-3 years, there's something called paternal exposure preconception, meaning if a man is taking a drug pre-conception, what are the risks to the child that's being born? Yeah? So this is developing science as we speak. You can actually Google this or you can check out the NPRA website and the information will come out. I can't talk about any specific product up here. Okay, so why exactly is pharmacovigilance a medical legal duty for healthcare professionals? The first thing is, of course, in animal studies. Animal studies are not fully transposable to humans, yeah? We can only test out drugs in pregnant rats, mice, whatever, never a pregnant woman. So again, they're not fully transposable to humans. The second thing is clinical trials, the participants do not necessarily reflect the effective population. They're really well controlled. The population in clinical trials do not have multiple comorbidities. They're not your very sick patient, right? And you have difficulty detecting rare adverse drug reactions from clinical trials. What does this mean? In a clinical trial setting, say you have 10,000 patients, right? For adverse reactions happening, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000, you will see it in a clinical trial setting. You will not see the side effects that happen 1 out of 100,000 patients. So then you depend on real-world data to provide you the true side effects of any drug or vaccine for that matter. And of course, HCPs have a duty to report all this information, and that is called real-world evidence. So pharmacovigilance reporting bridges the gap between controlled trials and real-world or real-life data. Okay? So all the data that you see in product information leaflets today, other than a clinical trial setting, it is coming from doctors, pharmacists, anyone who practices medicine, including nurses. Yeah? That is where the true data is coming from. Any suspicion, it doesn't have to be true. Okay. Now we look at examples of temporal limitations. Okay. The first one is estrogen. Now this data around estrogen is a bit old because there's new data around estrogen plus progesterone as well. But in the past, estrogen or HRT hormone replacement therapy was thought to have increased rates of breast cancer due to the long latency between exposure and the actual occurrence of breast cancer. And as a result of the reportings and things that happen, so imagine you're a woman in 1970s who's had a hysterectomy, okay? You're only exposed to estrogen for a period of 6 months of your life, maximum 12, okay? 1970s. 1990s, they all start developing breast cancer just after 6 months of exposure to estrogen. So somewhere, people started reporting this, and that's how the data gets passed down, right? Then we have the next drug called rosiglitazone. I'm sure many of you who were practicing in 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, it was a wonder drug. It was a miracle drug, right? It was doing really good things for your diabetic patients. Now, unfortunately, my own aunt died as a result of this. She died at the age of 56 of a myocardial infarction, right? She was on the drug. It increased the number of cardiovascular events worldwide, and marketing suspensions, restrictions happened worldwide, Malaysia included. The next one is rofecoxib. So here you have an increased risk of myocardial infarctions. Again, it was withdrawn. Why do these things happen only when we come into the real world? Because they're not seen in clinical trial. This is what you mean by temporal limitations of any adverse events that happen. And the last one is isotretinoin. Again, the teratogenicity was not seen in clinical trials of animal studies. Only when humans started using this in real-world settings, then you have all these warnings. So you can actually look up the risk management programs, including the risk management program for isotretinoin in Malaysia. Meaning in Malaysia, if someone is to prescribe isotretinoin, you would have a pregnancy prevention plan in place for your patient. Yeah? So all this is actually in the MPRA site, and I hope that all of you practicing are actually subscribing to it. So real-world reporting reveals what clinical trials can't, because time, diversity, and true risk begins in post-marketing phases only. Okay, so what happens, right, after you report all these things, right, you report it back to, either you report it directly to the health authority, or you report it to the product registration holder. These are pharmaceutical companies, like for example, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Sanofi. These are examples of product registration holders, right? So you report it back, and they are obligated to then investigate. They'll come back and ask you many questions, like when did the side effect happen? When did you give the drug? Is the patient taking any other medication? They'll ask you these kind of things, right? But they're trying to investigate when exactly was the drug given, what exactly happened. The more detailed the information, the better our science is, because it is a game of numbers and data. Okay, now all this that you report to a pharmaceutical company or you report directly to NPRA goes back to the WHO database called VGBase, right? Because side effects are truly rare, right? You might see one case happening in Malaysia, another case happening in India. You put it all together, you start seeing numbers. But you need to put it into a database. Now, what health authorities then do is they look at these databases, they look for patterns and trends. If patterns and trends are detected, then they go up as product label changes, updates, restrictions, many things happen. Yeah? So if I were to leave you today with one message and one message only, I don't work for KKM, but I have high regards of the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Authority, and all of you as practicing healthcare professionals should subscribe. It's a free subscription. Just fill in a Google form with your name, email address, example, and you'll be getting all these alerts that are proven, meaning any drug that is sold in Malaysia that has a new side effect. Because, come on, how can we remember all the side effects under the sun, right? What we learned 20 years ago versus today is changing, right? So paternal pre-exposure is also up there somewhere, all your latest drugs, your latest side effects, and NPRA is constantly giving updates and putting it on their website. So subscribe to it, you'll get the alerts directly to your email. It's very useful. My key message today is pharmacovigilance reporting is a critical link between clinical trials and real-world evidence. Healthcare professionals have a medical, legal, and ethical role as sentinels in safeguarding public health. Just as you are sentinels in reporting infectious diseases, you are also sentinels in reporting side effects. Even if you don't think the side effect is related to a product, please do report it, okay? And last but not least, when you do your reporting, what happens is that you are also actually keeping yourself safe, right? So I'll give you an example of medication errors that we get without naming any hospital or any product. So the product is an oncology product, okay? And this very famous hospital starts reporting 3 cases in which the patient started having serious allergic reactions post-infusion, right? All 3 patients collapsed and required resuscitation. So we start panicking as a product registration holder, we start panicking, 3 patients, same batch, maybe something wrong with our product, because normally they don't report, it's a very reputable hospital, okay? So, of course, oncology products are not as easy as your normal drugs, your day-to-day drugs. So you have to ask all these questions. At the same time, we're running manufacturing investigations on this product. While we're running the investigations, a 4th case has happened. Turns out there's a new pharmacist at this oncology center, and they were not giving the pre-medication of prednisone 2 days in advance. They're just giving it 1 day in advance at the wrong dose. So oncology products are well known for their immune reactions, right? But if you don't follow the right pre-medication, your patients are going to go on and have full-blown like adverse reactions and collapse and whatnot and require resuscitation or CPR. So by them reporting it to us, we can then advise them the right way to use the product and solve matters. So these are common examples that we see day to day, and we really hope that this sharing can actually help you in your practice with any of your new products. That's all from me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause to Dr. Jaga and all the references there. We're going to move on into our question and answer session. If you have any questions from the floor, we'll take it now. If you have your handphones out, you can scan the QR code there and your questions will come up straight away. If you do have any questions, just take out your handphones and so on. And not to worry, Dr. Jaga will be around the conference, so if you have a question that you need her involvement, she'll be around here, either in Hall 1 or Hall 2. I think she's needed in Hall 1 soon also, if I'm not mistaken. Alright, not to worry on the questions part. We will move on to the next session. Please, once again, give a big round of applause to Dr. Jaga, please. Thank you.